This is the You Winning Life Podcast, your number one source for mastering a positive existence. Each episode, we'll be interviewing exceptional people, giving you empowering insights, and guiding you to extraordinary outcomes. Learn from specialists in the worlds of integrative and natural wellness, spirituality, psychology, and entrepreneurship, so you too can be winning life. Now, here's your host, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified neuro-emotional technique practitioner, and certified entrepreneur coach, Jason Wasser.
Got that? All right, so we're back at Limmud Miami 2020 with one of our returning scholar in residences, musician in residence, guru in residence. One of my favorite speakers and friends for the last couple of years, Rabbi Andrew Hahn, otherwise known as the Kirtan Rabbi. So welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And you just did your Tai Chi class. Good. So let's talk for a few minutes about just like the Jewish Tai Chi thing that's going on. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a lesser known side of my going into a phone booth and coming out as originally I started out as there was the Tai Chi Rabbi, Kirtan Rabbi, and regular rabbi.
That sounds like the beginning of a joke. They all walk into a phone booth. Right.
And Kirtan Rabbi overtook everything else, so I kind of put everything on the back burner. But I've been doing martial arts and Tai Chi, martial arts for, I would date myself, 6 years, and Tai Chi for over 20. And as I was coming out of rabbinical school, I started to do originally I called it Tai Chi Kavanah, like intention, Jewish intention Kavanah, or a Jewish kind of Tai Chi, where it's a little bit of a how to put it, kind of schlepping some concepts from the Eastern practices into Jewish, but it works out pretty well. And I tend to do it, and when I go around doing a lot of Shabbatons, and I will often do it first thing in the morning on Shabbat morning, or during Musaf in some places, and I really much enjoy it. It's a little bit the word I'm looking for is whereas I don't think the Kirtan Rabbi piece is. It's a little bit of a shtick, because there's Tai Chi and there's Jewish, but I make it work with Jewish concepts.
But it's the integration of all this, and people will probably be surprised to know like a lot of this Eastern philosophy stuff was ours, right, in our tradition as well, and I don't think people are like always out there looking for other stuff outside of Judaism, and to come back home, to have it be brought back in is a really nice, beautiful
Or you can mine the tradition and find things like it. I would argue that it's not that it was already there, right, and that we had it all along. Definitely the encounter with the Eastern traditions has enhanced Jewish practice. A friend of mine once said, non-Jewish friend, he said that, he said Jews have both the bass and the treble turned up all the way at the same time. I kind of get that on some level, or that we're really in this very either chesedic or gevuridic tension, and I feel like these practices have come to give us tiferet, to balance that out for us, and it's a gift. And we're now taking it in, and we always have. Right. So I've had a lot of people complain about these kind of things, but we have always subsumed the cultures that we've been amongst. I remember once this young man, after the first Kirtan Rabbi live concert, he complained that I mentioned that it came from India, and he said it's Jewish, just like kind of what you just said. He said it's Jewish all along, and I said, oh yeah, and I suppose you really love doing a Don Olam to a Prussian marching tune. Like we have always been part of the cultures we're in. It's just now the culture is global.
Yes.
So we have this, and it's I think it's keeping true and strong to the particular things that are Jewish. For example, I think Jewish Tai Chi works very well because I think Judaism has a very strong connection to body. And Spinoza said every idea is an idea of body. There's not this kind of radical dualism of body-mind, even though some would say there is, but I think there isn't. And so doing body-based practices like chanting, like Tai Chi, like yoga, Jewish yogas, I think is bringing something to us both back and new.
Yeah. Well, I know it's definitely a integrative mind-body, like we were just talking about, like, is there a separation, like this dualism of neck up intellectualism and heart-centered or body-felt, and the concept of kavanah in general is supposed to be really syncing everything together. And I know how many people out there are searching, right? They're going from synagogue to synagogue, they're going from retreat to retreat, but to be able to find a way to make this very symbiotic is a very challenging task. And you've been able to do this and create a community of people who, right, one with the music, with kirtan, with chanting, all that stuff. It's very, like, there's such a beautiful taste around it that when I first heard about you through a mutual friend and then met you, that was like my first, like, oh wow, like, I didn't know you can do this, because this was like as far out there bringing Judaism into this as that I experienced at that time. And then now it's such a normal for me this many years later that I want people to make sure that they know that there's stuff like this that exists, and it can be organically Jewish and organically Jewish centered for them to tap into it. And then the whole idea of like chanting, right? We are chanters. I know we have the silent prayer and we do repetition of the Amidah, but do you think like the kind of chanting that you're doing with kirtan can enhance the prayer experience, meditative experiences, especially if you're alone? And I know that's a big practice, right?
Well, you really can't do kirtan alone. You can do mantras or nigunim and obviously sing alone and have a kind of a practice. And you can also hone your own skills as a musician alone. But I'm not sure, I did another podcast not too long ago on Judaism Unbound, or I think that's called. And they, our religion is not wired for doing alone. It's really community-based, the whole thing needing a minyan and things like that. But I think that I do find that this is taking over very strongly. The rabbis are realizing that people want to do yoga, and so let's bring it into the synagogue. People want to and there's a problem with these things on the one hand is that you have to be, I like to say you have to be the chant you want to see in the world. So having your own personal practice is very important. I mean, I had a rabbi friend of mine once said, I don't meditate, but I lead meditation because that's what they want. And I was like, well, how?
There's a little bit of disingenuousness to it.
There's a chicken and egg part to it, but I'm glad it's all happening. And I, as you point out, like when I was first doing this, it was pretty, there was a resistance from the more traditional elements. Fortunately, I come from a very traditional, strong knowledge base. But now it's becoming much more common. I used to be, whenever I led a kirtan or a chanting session in a synagogue in New Jersey somewhere, originally I'd say, who's never done this before? And every hand went up. And now it's just a smattering of hands. Everybody has heard of kirtan.
Which is so incredible that that's happening.
Yes.
But this is the new. Right? I mean, in other words, this is our new paradigm, that like what we were fighting for spiritually 10, 15, 20 years ago has become so mainstream. Thank God. So I love the fact that this is happening. And
I mean, I think maybe we should be looking for the next thing.
Right.
Like, this is already becoming too normative. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, or we want this to become the normative where people can tap into it on a deeper level, that maybe they just had an exposure to it. They've come to a concert, but now how do they take it home? Besides, obviously, listening and streaming and downloading your CDs.
Well, that's the next phase of Kirtan Rabbi. I'm calling it the Kirtan Rabbi Prayer Initiative, and it's a not-for-profit actually. That we're taking it into education, where let there be 1,000 kirtan rabbis, let it flourish, because people actually want to pray this way. This is something I avoided prayer times, but I realized, people actually, for some people, they want to pray this way. I personally prefer a regular, straight-up conservative movement service for my own spiritual needs, and I get everything and more from that. But I do have a certain sense of how to bring that energy into the kirtan. So as a rabbi, that becomes my rabbinate, my mission.
Amazing. Beautiful. So I know you're doing a class again in a little bit. People out there who have not yet heard you or seen you, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? I know I've been to, I can't even keep track how many times I've come and I've become a groupie of yours over the last couple of years. And but how can everybody else find you?
Well, there's kirtanrabbi.com, the website. It's getting redone, so it's a little. It needs a cleanup, but there's that, and Reb Drew, R-E-B as in boy, D-R-E-W at kirtanrabbi.com, and I'm traveling the world and trying to share this Torah,
which is much needed, and we're really glad that you are.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's always good to see you, man.
Pleasure, brother. All right, so I'm back with Danny Reed, who is our fantabulous captain, co-chair, Limmud extraordinaire,
something like that.
Whatever,
Just,
Rabbi Moyle.
It's like that classic line from Godfather 3. Whenever I think I'm out, they pull me back in. So that's basically it.
Yeah. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So,
yeah, exactly.
So
we're good.
So, well, first of all, like, this has been your number, how many years now?
This is my fourth or fifth.
Fourth year.
And
I'm
last
so
year,
sorry.
I did. I apologize too.
Well, I think it was I take partial responsibility for sucking you into
that's right.
this.
You're the one that
this
sucked
is
me in.
This was
This is all you, man.
Yeah.
So
I publicly proclaimed that at the pop-up at Temple Menorah. That was a nice little publicly proclaimed that at Papa. That was a pack of pickled peppers.
So last year. So that was like because we haven't had a Limmud, all-day Limmud like this for 3 years. First time in 3 years. So last year I was thinking, I miss it. We need to do something. And so I did that pop-up to just kind of like do something Limmudi, something big tent. And then, now here we are. We ended up at a full-day festival.
So speaking of big tent, we have how many people approximately?
About 350 people.
Wow.
So, and you can see from all walks of life. And in terms, this is what I love about Limmud, right? So it's not only the people that come, but it's the presentations that we have, the presenters that we have on topics that cover anything and everything you can think of under the sun that deals with our lives as Jews. It's truly big tent Judaism. So it's anything that we feel is part of our personal lives, our Jewish lives, our history, politics, self-improvement. I mean, you're obviously
I'm something.
You're a something, dealing with self-improvement. So, there's personal issues, but also like how judaically, how as Jews that are part of the world we live in, how we cope. So
we really focus on the ish. That's the part of the Jewish. Because, we take all those little subsections, all those little nuggets of like, wherever you are, whatever community you hang out with, you're welcome here at Limmud.
Correct.
And that's the beautiful thing. And not only you welcome, but we want you to teach. We want you to be a volunticipant, which is one of our really cool things, right? Being a participant and a volunteer.
I mean, one of my favorite things is in terms of Limmud and what it stands for. There's a lot, but one of the things I love is arguing. I think it's called arguing for the sake of heaven, which in other words for me means, as somebody who considers himself a truly pluralistic Jew, that arguing for the sake of heaven means that it doesn't matter if I agree with you or disagree with you. You have a space here to express yourself. Okay? And I can respectfully disagree, and we can have an exchange of ideas. But it's a space where every idea that's connected to our life, our religion, our sense of peoplehood, our experience in the world and dealing with the day-to-day can be expressed and talked about. So, here we have, let's take it. Today we have some traditional Torah text study. And in an hour, we're going to have a session on trans Jews. I mean,
the whole gamut.
Which
is amazing.
So it is. It's incredible. So somebody doing, right now we have a session going on with a rabbi who uses the Hindu chant and response meditation of kirtan to express your spirituality and connection to your body and the spiritual world. And puts that in a Hebrew form. So, it's not cultural appropriation.
Definitely. It's kosher.
It's kosher. That's right. It's
koshered.
It's koshered
and koshered.
But
he's also one of the most attended sessions. He's someone that we've brought back. He's one of our rock stars that we've had over the years.
And again, it's an example of how, we don't exist in a vacuum. We connect with the real world. But how can we live a purposeful life, and how can we connect with ourselves as Jews, as part of the Jewish people, but also connect with the world around us too.
Right. So as the person who's been kind of seeing the facilitation of all this, the behind the scenes, that I want people out there to know, because one of the things that people may not know about Limmud Miami is that we're 100% volunteer run. We don't have any full-time staff. We are mostly fundraised and grants and scholarships, and God bless our South Florida Jewish community for chipping in, and then whatever we make on ticket sales. But everything we have to do has to come out of the organization's pocket.
Right.
So how can we inspire people to get involved? Because this is, when people ask, like, what really is Limmud? I'm like, well, it's the original Jewish TED Talks. Before, 'cause this existed way before TED Talks existed, but it's not just you sit and listen to the speaker. It's full engagement. There's workshops. There's give and takes. My workshop is going to be a fully engaged workshop in the next little bit. But one of the things that we do need and that we want to inspire is much more people in the future to become involved.
Correct.
So how can people do that? Where do we start? Whether they've joined us in Limmud before or they've heard about Limmud and they want to do it, how can they get involved? How can they find us?
That's a great question. So, I mean, I would say this, is that the easiest thing is just to reach out to one of the board members. And I'm happy to give my email, which is DannyLimmudMiami@gmail.com. But we're always looking for people to get involved and help plan and organize. If you're somebody that's been inspired by Limmud or inspired by being a part of the Jewish community, inspired by organizing something that has impact on the community, then we are looking for you. We're looking for all types of people. We're looking for the people that love programming. I mean, there are people that love to put things in order, you know. And I have a master's degree in library and information science, and one thing I discovered while taking the classes is that there are people that want an orderliness, you know, and they want to be part of the creative process or part of creation of something, but they're the ones that want to, you know, create the schedule and do the logistics. And if you are one of those people, we need you.
Right, if you're one of those people who doesn't necessarily want to be in front of the camera.
Right, if you don't want to be in front of the camera, that's fine. But if you want to be part of something that has purpose and meaning and value to the community, then once again, you can reach out to me, Danny@LimmudMiami@gmail.com. I'm sure you can reach out to Jason.
We have our Instagram, Limmud Miami.
Jason will send information. But we're going to be already sitting in 2 or 3 weeks and organizing. Starting to organize for next year.
Yeah, there's no break. We just
deciding what we're going to do. Yeah. So that's going to be happening in a few weeks.
Well, thankfully today's been such a massive success. I know we had some fears about the numbers and pulling this off after a hiatus, but it's been, I mean, like, everybody's having such a good time. There's so much networking going on. There's people who've never met. That's one of the side things.
Correct.
The hallway conversations that are happening and the connections and the networking. I know there's people I've met that I've been in touch with on Facebook that we've been like, oh, we'll meet here. And we finally met and like, great. And now we're like, wow, where have you been our whole lives? Right, as friends.
And people are,
right.
And that is one of the things. And I'm sure, like, one of the comments people are going to make is that the way it's working out today is that we have 10 minutes between each session, which the reality is a bit too short.
Right.
But okay, that's good. So put some pressure on them because they have to make those intense connections, go on to the next session. And, hopefully they'll make that connection, as the day.
And then they have the happy hour, the musical,
correct,
right?
And we're going to have a happy hour.
Which we're known for. And I don't think a lot of other places do that. We have this really awesome, after the end, hang out, come schmooze a little bit more.
And we're going to be doing that.
Doing that. So plenty of good stuff, right? We got our floor musician walking by, our famous Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy will be playing at the happy hour. I talked him into just hanging out and doing that. And
loads of talent. I mean, this is amazing. All the different things that are going on. So awesome.
Very cool.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
To be continued. All right. So we're back with Eva.
Evelyn.
Right, but you also go by?
Eve.
Sorry.
My Spanish nickname.
Spanish nickname. So.
Then some people call me Eve because of that.
But we're in Miami, so I have to make sure that it's culturally appropriate for everything. So we're sitting here at Limmud 2020, and this is not your first year here.
No, we were with a group that made this happen the first time. Yeah. So it's an honor to be back and to see this.
Always happy to have you here and joining us and running the kids stuff and singing and all these cool things. So I know one of the things besides your awesome singing, you just wrote a kids book.
Yes, I did. It's called The Shabbat Treasure. I actually happen to have a copy to read to the kiddos. And it's based on a one woman and a puppet show. And also the music of the Shabbat Treasure is on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, so that everybody can enjoy it. And it's about two siblings welcoming the most magical day of the week, and it's an adventure. It has a pirate, the Shabbat pirate.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fun.
Because Jews aren't necessarily known for pirates. I mean, I know there's the Jews of the Pirates of the Caribbean, that there's a book like that.
Yeah.
But, every Jewish kid wants to be a pirate, right?
So the premise of the book is Eve, which is my character, that's why her name is Eve. She's getting ready for Shabbat to meet the Shabbat queen, but her little brother wants to play. And so he goes like, oh, you want to meet the Shabbat queen? Well, I am the Shabbat pirate, and I stole the Shabbat elements. I took them all, and then I have them. What, too much with the voice?
No, it's perfect.
That's what I do
I'm
all
just
day.
envisioning the whole story already in my head.
In the show,
Right.
there's actually a puppet. When I tell the story, sometimes it's a puppet, sometimes it's just me wearing different hats, which, so many people.
Which kind of sounds like life in general.
Exactly.
Because you have all these other things going on in your life
Yeah,
as well.
sometimes
right?
it's a hat, sometimes it's a kippah, female kippah,
Right.
It depends what you're doing. But yeah, and so he takes all of the elements. He doesn't steal them, he just, grabs them. And Eve has to come up with 3 fun ways to get ready for Shabbat. Those are the 3 fun challenges. And so, yeah, they get ready for the Shabbat queen, and they learn that there's more to it than just, what is keva, what you're supposed to do to get ready for Shabbat, but just to have fun with it, bring the spirit in, and that's where the Shabbat pirate comes in. So and kids love it because it's about the queen, but it's also about pirates, and it's about adventure, and it's
So you're hitting it all, right? You're hitting the boy side, the girl side, the pirate side, the princess side.
Well, that's the idea,
right?
yeah. And we were very lucky to be able to present it also at different venues, but also at the JCC Theater last November.
Very cool.
And Sunday morning, I'm starting to do that, Sunday mornings at the theater, because I want families to come to the theater. That's how I grew up, so I want that to get
Right, and it's a lost art, unfortunately, that's getting defunded and all these other things. So it's a beautiful thing that's happening.
Yes, and many venues are still there, so I think there is a way.
Yeah.
And it's very special for the kiddos to be able to experience the light and the sound, and to be spectators, sometimes participants,
and to have no cell phones around, and just to focus and be part of the experience.
Yeah.
So walking through the steps of writing this book, because there's, again, so much going on in your world of what you're doing.
Yeah.
What was that process like, becoming an author? And not only an author, but it's writing a kid's book and then having to find someone to do the graphics and all that stuff. So what was that like?
So I love writing. I have always loved writing. Mostly I have been writing plays. I'm a playwright, but when it comes to writing, this was a whole new world. So, but he said, I'm going to take on the challenge. I'm going to do my best. And I did have the show, so it was based off that. But, it's everything, it brings feedback to anything. So the show ended up being more like the book at the end. And I taught myself how to do it. I've had some mentors and wonderful conversations with people who, said you can't do it. They always been supportive, and
You already have some of your fan club hanging out over here.
My number 1 fan, and it's so special. My little one, when I get to rehearse with him or tell him my stories. So yeah.
Awesome.
You like the Shabbat pirate? Yeah.
Is that your favorite book?
We read many books.
Many books?
Many
Do you
books.
have a favorite book?
What was your favorite book? I think it was about a race in Israel nowadays. We go through phases. We also love Stone Soup.
Cool.
Stories are wonderful. And, our tradition, thank God, has so many of them. And so new ones and old ones. And
yeah. Awesome. Well, congrats, first of all, on
Thank you.
becoming, speaking here again today and doing all this stuff, but on the book and all the new projects and awesome,
this is
adorable.
so exciting being here and being able to share with Limmud Miami. I can't wait for the rest of the day. So far, we've been to the drum circle, and to start off with that energy
with our good buddy over there.
Yeah, there's so many interesting people, and it's great to gather here and to learn what everybody's doing and to share what you're doing as well. So it's a great place to be.
Yep, agreed.
If you're not here this year, make sure you get here next time, because for all ages, all venues, or
all backgrounds.
Exactly.
Right.
So Jason, it's been great seeing you again.
And where can people find the book?
They can find the book. It's called The Shabbat Treasure at Amazon.com. Really easy for you guys. And the music for free at YouTube. You just type in the Shabbat Treasure.
And if they wanted to bring you out to do any work,
so
where can they
actually,
find
I don't
you?
know when this is this
It'll
on
be out
air?
whenever.
So
It'll be
next,
eventually.
actually next,
Sometime this week.
next Sunday, March 1st
Okay.
at 10 a.m. I am actually doing the Poor Imagination Show at the MAR JCC Theater at 10 a.m. for the whole family. It's a one-woman show where everybody gets to become the protagonists of the story of Purim, very
Nice.
special for the family. And they can go to Toratron.com. It's Torahtron, Toratron, like Torah and theater. In Hebrew, Toratron.com to learn more.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
All right, so we're back at Limmud Miami with Jacob Markey, and you just spoke.
I just spoke.
What was the topic of your little thing going on over there?
So my topic was what about on the current state of Israeli politics, and really just talking about all what's been going on in the Israeli political scene over the past year plus.
So what is going on? In a quick, brief nutshell, what do we need to know for the people that weren't there hanging out in your class?
When in essence, for the first time in Israel's history, you've had not one, not two, but 3 elections in less than a year. And it's really just talking about the background of Israel's political system and understanding why we are at where we are today and what Israel could be looking like.
So what's your guess? What do you think is going to happen? What are people thinking? What are people saying?
I mean, if only I was be able to make the predictions, then I would have,
How
I'd
easy
have
would that
all,
be,
all
right?
the money. I mean, right now, a lot of people in Israel are thinking that it's once again be in the same spot as it's been over the past year or so, and they could go to a 4th election.
Yikes. So what do we need to do differently? What do people need to learn differently? How can we change this process, make it a lot easier?
I just want to say a quick hello to fellow Milwaukeean. I walked into your session for a second.
Basically, I think it's just understanding the Israeli political system, understanding how it's different than it is in the U.S., and understanding the why. I think when we look at politics in another country and when we look at it in Israel, it's important that we look through the lens of an Israeli or look through the lens of someone there. And then we can understand better. If we look at using the lens that we have, we might have a different thought about what it is and what's going on.
So it makes sense because I know here in America, like if we're Jewish, we have a viewpoint or a belief about what should be going on over there. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's people over there who say, you don't live here. You're not dealing with the day-to-day. You're not invested in it. Maybe you're not even giving us money or donating or supporting any of our causes. How do we bridge that divide and that gap?
I think a lot of it is understanding. I mean, I've been to Israel many times. I would think go to Israel, understand the issues, and then importantly, read about what's going on there. I think there's nothing substituting for living there and spending a significant amount of time. But that's you really, and unless you're there, a lot of people will say like, yeah, you truly can't you don't get it in the same way, but that's understand more. And I think luckily, I know being in Miami, this has the highest percentage of people in any community who have traveled to Israel. And I think that's really special. And I think people in Miami understand it a lot more than that distinction.
So what do you think it is about the Miami Jewish community that makes this such a different thing? Because I know per capita, I don't know, maybe compared to New York or other places, but we have so many people over the years that have made Aliyah, stuff like that. But I know that we're a very strong Zionist community when other communities around the world are maybe becoming a little bit more critical and more judgmental of Israel. There's always been this strong, we support Israel even if they do screw up mindset.
I mean, one aspect here, and for me, I'm not a native of Miami, had to learn is with the strong Latin population, very, very Zionist. How a lot of people grew up. If you're in Argentina, Venezuela, other parts of Central South America, you have a different mindset of what Zionism is. And I think you have a strong day school culture here, and this is a strong culture of how do we teach about Israel and how do we understand Israel. You've got other programs here that take kids to Israel. You have dozens and dozens, over like 100 kids or more, kids who go on March to Living each year.
And that's just in Dade County. You've got Broward and Palm Beach and everything like that.
But I think it's really special, the level of engagement down here that you don't see everywhere.
And do you think from that Latin culture, because of a lot of them came to Latin America post-Holocaust, that this idea of having our safe space of the state of Israel is so much brought into them from those experiences?
Exactly, and it's also just the culture of when you're going to school, going to day school. And if that's the culture in the community is very tight. It's a much different conception that we have in the U.S. in these days. And not necessarily each of them are different choices, not to kind of prejudge, but it does create a different dynamic. I mean, I think Miami has the highest percentage of day school penetration of anywhere in the country. I'd have to double check the statistics, but I believe that's what it is.
Incredible. Yeah. So then coming from here, going back to your day job, what's a little bit of what's going on there with what you're doing over at the Federation and how that's tied in specifically to what you were doing here?
I mean, a lot of the part of it that I do is educating the community, educating what's going on, and this is a perfect extension of it. It's not up to me to give the answers, my own personal opinion about what's happening in Israel, what should happen in Israel. But I feel like one of our roles is to help other people understand, and they can make the judgments for themselves. I think that's an essential important of what we should be doing.
Awesome. So if people want to track you down, find out more about where you're speaking and JCRC, where can they find you?
Absolutely. My email is jmarkey@gmjf.org, jmarkey at Greater Miami Jewish Federation. And yeah, I'd love to be able to connect. I think it's so important to understand, to learn for the future, and become just an educated person on this and like any other issues. But I mean, for me, one of my loves is Israel, so I want people to know as much about Israel as they can.
See how lucky you are to be working in a job, in a career with the things that you're most passionate about. And that's what we wish to everybody. And this is what the beautiful thing about Limmud, you have all these different people, all these different backgrounds, just hanging out with stuff that they're passionate about.
Absolutely.
And there's people here, I was mentioning to a previous guest, that they practice in one field, but the topic they're speaking about would be the last thing you would ever expect an attorney to speaking about. It's about like 5 elements Chinese medicine, right? 2 completely crazy random things that are the opposite worlds. But this is what the beautiful thing about Limmud, that it brings all types of people together. So thank you for hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to hanging out again.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm here with Jimmy Yaakov Yisrael Costello, the magical musical Maggid of music.
Wow, that's a nice save.
All that stuff, right? Yeah, I think you have the longest professional, is there like a logo that we can just use so we could be the artist formerly known as?
Yeah, but then when I change my name, I'll be the artist formerly known as Musical Maggid. And it just gets longer and longer, That's why, Jimmy, it's hard to get Jewish music gigs when your name is Jimmy. And it's hard to get any gigs when your name is Yaakov Yisrael.
Right.
In fact, I had YaakovYisrael.com for a while, like 10 years ago.
But how do people spell that?
But then when you look at Yaakov Yisrael, it looks in web, URLs, it's tricky. So it looks like Yaakovi Israel.
It's a big, that's a branding and marketing thing that we should probably have figured out before we bought the domain.
Gary V complains about being Gary V, then we could all learn.
If we're all at that level, Halavai, right? So, my goal is one day to get Gary V as a guest here at Limmud Miami. That'll be
Gary, come be a guest.
That's it, right? You hear us, Gary V? We're making the big request.
I haven't heard you talk about NET. You got to know about
Any of this good stuff. So, this is not your first Limmud. You've been here for how many years now?
Forever. When did the first one we did 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Give or take, yeah. You were just strumming in the hallway, and you worked your way up the
they
the
kicked
food
me out of the
change.
hallway. They said, it's too loud, people are complaining.
Yeah, they're like, no, we want you to do a session.
Right.
Yeah, and now you're doing multiple, right? You got the kids stuff going on.
Right, we got the kids session and then the cocktail hour playing while people are not listening.
Right, but they're enjoying the music, but that's the whole thing, to bring up the ambience. So, so
it's always good to, not get feedback from what you're doing. Make sure that you really love it and,
But it's not feedback from the speaker, it's feedback from the...
Right, you don't want feedback from the speaker.
Right, definitely don't want that. So what's been your experience this year compared to last year's or previous years?
This year I brought my son. And we're doing parallel things. I check in with him every 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, and how's it?
And it's great because, when you're doing something and you're doing the first kid session and the kids aren't here yet, so one more kid in the music session who knows the songs really helps out.
Yeah.
We had about 5 kids, and usually the last couple years we've done it, or 2 years ago when we did it, and this year we had about 5 adults and 5 kids in the kids music sessions, and
it's so nice to see that we put such a focus on our kids programming here.
Right.
And I think I don't know if a lot of other programs do that, but I know this has been a commitment that we've had for so many years.
Right. And it's growing and it's blossoming, and it's not just somebody singing kid songs or reading a story. There's real hardcore professionals with organizations and what are they doing now? Grow some sort of. There's a lot of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, and who talks to 6 and 8 year olds about this?
Well, the person who's running our kids program, who's a therapist as well, and so we always have that mindset of wanting to give much deeper, much more powerful experiences than just babysitting, and I think that's one of the many things that makes our Limmud so special. Besides the fact, because Miami is such a multicultural, as we know, right? It's such a very big melting pot of different people. I know, right?
Drink coffee.
We try to do both. That's good. So, But I think this is the beautiful thing that you have everybody coming in from different backgrounds wanting. Like it's like we have to select you to work with our kids. Even if you might be known in the community, but we still want to choose, which is kind of cool that we have that reputation of being like, we're picky. We're going to make sure that we give our kids the best stuff.
Right.
And our kids programming is entirely free with paid adult tickets. So it's pretty good deal.
I think it's a good deal.
Yeah. So let's talk music for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And spirituality.
So at 5:00 we're doing the cocktail hour, and we'll play a bunch of Jewish music, original stuff, Shlomo Carla boxings. We'll crowd pleasers, Oseh Shalom, and how does that relate to spirituality? Well, I like to focus on what I call songs Jewish folks sing. What in the world does that mean, right? There's probably, maybe there's like a dozen songs that Jews from all sorts of backgrounds, or at least all sorts of backgrounds at Limmud, because let's face it, there's a lot more types of Jews in the world than here at Miami even, in terms of languages and culture and background and philosophies and physical characteristics, life choices, what other options, like beards,
beard styles,
lots of different sizes, there's the short trim ones, and you really you can't even judge anybody by the size of their beard anymore.
But if they use beard oil or not, that's a judgment-worthy thing I've heard.
Right. I ran out. I got to get more alpha male
so
beard
shout out
balm.
to Eitan.
Eitan. I've known Eitan for a lot of years. And he just took his passion. I don't know. We've shifted into passion and went with it, and made a business, and it's connecting with people all over the world, and.
He's a rock star.
And, his Facebook feed turned into alpha male. People started complaining, I want to hear more stuff. I'm really inspired by these people that just go out and do it and fall on their face and get up and do it again. And
well, it sounds like anybody in any business, and I know as your career has evolved, right? You're going out and you're doing kids music programs, and you're doing synagogue programs, and now you're concerts and stuff like that. You've had this nice evolution over the last couple of years, because music was not your first career.
Back when I was in law school, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be playing music, but didn't want to quit. Wasn't sold that it wasn't going to work until 2009, when not only was I not happy with what I was doing, but there were no opportunities to do it anymore for a good year in Manhattan. Moved to Philadelphia, rented a room from my brother and sister-in-law. Born and raised. My family's from Philadelphia. My mom's side of the family's from Philly, in Camden. And my brother went to Temple University and settled in Philly, and had a young kid and an empty room. I rented a room from them and started playing in the park.
And that's where you met somebody.
And that's,
if I remember right.
2 years into it.
Yeah.
2 years into it, got set up, and blind date. You never know. Shlomo Carla says you never know.
She was not blind.
She was not blind, but it was a shidduch date, with a mutual friend who convinced us both to meet each other. And we were open to it.
It took
2 dates. We went out 2 times.
Yeah.
And then we were an item, and then we were engaged, and then we got married.
Yeah.
So we met right after.
Sounds like a Jewish success story.
Well, I'll tell you what the success story is. I was mature enough at 35 or so to realize that whatever image I had growing up of fairy tale, happily ever after, was not true. And here I'm in a relationship with somebody in my 30s, and we have our
stuff.
Shtus.
Your pekalach.
Yeah, we have our packages. We have our mindsets, and where we're stuck, and where we're not inclined to grow, and habits and whatever. And they didn't really bother each other. We knew about them. So I jumped on it. Had a little conversation with God, and before I was doing He's Bodedus in the woods all the time. And here we go. Let's make this work. This is gonna be real. I gotta say that I learned. Shalom brought a blessed memory.
Yep.
He would always say, the worst thing that happened to all of us growing up are these kid stories, and they lived happily ever after.
Right.
And he wants to just add. I'd love when I write a kid's book, I want to end it like this in his honor. And they lived happily ever after, and they worked very hard at it.
Right.
And
I would have it from my perspective, which I've been thinking about for years, is, and then the next week they went to couples counseling.
Also,
right? Because that's part of the work. That's part of the, it's that old joke of back in the day, it's if you have a therapist, there's something wrong with with you. And now, thank God, in 2019, 2020, it's like if you don't have a therapist, there's something wrong with you, right? So that whole thing is flipped. Thank God. And if you don't, and I always joke, like, if they don't like music and if they don't like books, there's something not trustworthy. And I've added a new third thing to that over the last couple of years.
Really?
If they don't like Ellen DeGeneres, they're a no-go. Like, if you can't, it's like,
because she's likable,
because she's likable, she's relatable. But if someone's like, if they have a strong negative opinion about her, there's some, I don't know if I could trust them. Yeah, it's kind of like a litmus test for me at 41 years old. I know it's a random one, but like I think we all need to have our little, boundaries of like, what are you going to base judgment on of the people you want in your life? And they're like, if they don't like Ellen, you can't be friends with them. It's like it's a very strong thing. I know. I might actually give a class on that.
How committed are you to that? Are you open to
Well, the values of what she...
For sure.
Right? And that's going to be actually my class is Meadows-based decision-making, right? Which is about character trait development. And how do you bring that... Like, people say, oh, yeah, I know what I base my decisions on in life. But if I challenge them to say, okay, give me your list of things that you're actually doing that on, they're going to have a blank response. So the class that I'm giving it for is on that. How do you get really crystal clear on how do you want your life to be based on the decisions you're making, but what are you making those decisions on? Not based on old stories and old narratives, right? Like you were saying about this idea of marriage, but in every aspect of your life. Relationships and friends and spirituality and community and financial investments and your food and your parenting and whatever you want it to be. Yeah. So for me, I'm not judging someone else who doesn't. They're like, oh, well, this is my, these are the things, right, that work for me. And like someone has, like, they're like, oh, I don't like horseradish. That could be someone else's.
Sure.
Right?
Cilantro,
Cilantro is
30% of the people like actually can't.
Right, it tastes like soap.
Lee was one of these people. It tastes like soap.
Man, but thank God that wasn't a make it or break it core value for you. For some people, if they're a foodie, that could be a touch and go thing. Or beards.
She's actually not a beard person.
Right, but she is now.
But she's a me person.
Right.
And so far,
so good.
Trim the mustache. I'm not tripping over it, and
even though she grew up in a family.
I buy flowers, and maybe because
right.
Who knows? But I have to tell you that I'm a big Calvin and Hobbes fan, and I always wondered. There's different types of people. There's people that see Hobbes as real, and like they have Calvin's perspective on the world, and everybody else they just don't see Hobbes for his real potential. And then there's the straight perspective. Oh, Hobbes is a stuffed tiger in Calvinism. Obviously, I'm much more. I have an affinity for the first type of people, and I thought like. The person I marry has to see that Hobbes is a real tiger. If she can't see that Hobbes is a real tiger, I don't know how we're going to get along.
How serious is this going to get? Yeah.
Leva had never heard of Calvin and Hobbes. She can't stand comic books because it's too much like conversation at once. She doesn't know where to start, and like nobody taught her as a kid how to read comic books, so she's like, that's not my thing. So not only does she not agree with me about Hobbes being a real tiger, but her whole paradigm is different. And yet, we've been married, thank God, more than 7 years, and we're still together.
Yep. And kids.
So, and thank God, we have amazing kids that keep me alive and keep me from sleeping, and something to that. And so it could be that your soulmate has never heard of Ellen,
right?
Who I like. I don't know that I've sat down and watched Ellen shows, but on Facebook videos when like Steve Harvey or somebody who I'm like interested in at the moment is on, like that's always
Gary
cool.
V.
Gary V.
Yep.
And Jason Wasser. And
Dr. Ginsburg. And his magical stick. That's not a metaphor for anything. That's actually a magical stick.
That's a magical walking stick, There's beautiful ground here. I don't know why I don't come here. I come here once a year for Limmud.
So
I gotta come to do.
Yeah, it's a place to go.
It's free. Oleta costs money.
Don't forget about the parking.
Actually, you can get into Oleta from here.
Oh.
I got lost once in. Why don't we just tell personal stories on the podcast?
This is just for the Limmud community.
When my third kid was born, Halili was born. She was born on. She'd just come home from the hospital, I think, like Thursday. Leva kicks me out to go do his Bodadus and Oleta, like for the first time in a good week or so. I got lost. Like, usually I leave my phone in the car, and I go wander the bike trails, and I like wandering. I brought my phone with me for whatever reason, and I go farther, and then I'm on this I now have a map and I see that it's like a snake trail, and I just was on the other end of the park, and then walked the wrong way. It's Friday afternoon, Shabbos is coming, I gotta get home. I end up in FIU's campus, but because I had my phone, I could get an Uber, and I got an Uber back to Oleta and drove home. But it might have been the last time I was on this campus.
Nice. Yeah. So, you gotta put the effort in, right?
You gotta put the effort in.
And I think that's a beautiful thing about this day, right? Limmud, it's all volunteer driven.
Right.
We have no unpaid staff. We're just talking about
not only unpaid, you have to pay to be a volunteer.
And not only are there speakers, but there's comedians and all these other things that are going on. There happens to be a stand-up comedian standing behind this screen right now with his walking
good things stick. We can talk. It's a good thing we can talk about work.
Right. So now if people want to track you down, they want to bring you into their events. Go do some stuff. Where can they find you?
Musicalmagid.com, Magid with 2 G's, and all the info is there. And you can find videos and kids music and Jewish music and big into Shlomo Carlebach music. Let's talk about spirituality and music for a second, just for
okay. Yeah, we're gonna.
The end.
Yeah.
Because I do all these different types of music, and trying to figure out, if you want to be a jack of all trades, you talked about this on your podcast just recently. You want to be a jack of all trades, you end up being a master of nothing. And but how do you give stuff up, or can you actually make a living doing just this?
Ego handling, picking one thing.
Can you ego handling being just a kids musician when it's only part of it? So I'm thinking a lot about mission. How do all these things? What's the common area of the kids' music and the Jewish music and I like playing Grateful Dead music too, but it's not on mission unless it's for a specific purpose. Trying to create an atmosphere of holy joy, of spirituality, of songs without that other kind of association, but Jewish music.
Yeah.
For kids, for adults, for anybody who wants to listen to it, but with a specific focus on the musical Magid. I don't.
It's a powerful thing because I know in the Christian world, right? The rock, Christian, right? Prayer, work. There's worship music.
Right.
It's such an embedded part of the culture. I actually saw a Facebook video the other day of someone who worked at a church and he was going around just singing songs, and he would stop and he would see which one of his office staff would continue. Yeah. And he would jokingly rebuke them with a big smile on his face. How do you not know that song? And they're I don't know the words, or I've never heard of that one before. So there's such an embedded culture in youth work and community with worship songs that are done just right. And that's some really good, powerful rock music that's coming out of that world. That's it sold millions of records. There's that famous South Park episode about that.
Yeah, right. Where was it? Double Myrrh.
Right, Double Myrrh. So, where they want to how do you become a rich musician? Go to the Christian rock world. But it's not that way in the Jewish world. You have that, because it's such one, we're possibly singing another language, but two, smaller segment of society.
Right.
And then to hit that, Matas Yahoo, which, we have social connections with now, as he's married to a South Florida girl, and there's many other Jewish musicians you've partnered with and collaborated with. But it's a niche. It's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche.
Right.
So you got to get really good. You have to make sure your branding is right, your marketing's right, and all that stuff. So you got to put the work on. You got to hustle. That's the beautiful thing. Indeed. So cool. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Good. And Limmud 2020, and then obviously we're hoping next year and have more
Limmud
rocking and more
2021.
jamming.
Amen.
Beautiful. All right. Back again. Limmud Miami. Lionel Middlepot.
Yes. Hey, Jason.
I was so afraid that I was going to mess that up, even with practicing 15 times. But happy to have you here.
You very happy to
one
be
of the
here.
speakers that a lot of people are oh, this could be really, really cool. And I know you finished up you had 2 sessions today. So let's just quickly talk about what you just taught.
So the first one I gave was about 248, an initiative that I co-founded with Partnership Together of the Jewish Agency. We are believing that being Jewish is doing Jewish, and doing Jewish for us is easily created, easily replicated initiatives, because the Jewish world doesn't need any more fundraisers, but we do need a lot of people that are doing and being Jewish for their own good and for our communities.
Awesome. And then that second one?
And the second one is a personal passion of mine. It's virtual reality, and what does it mean to have a Jewish identity in virtual reality? And it's going to be more of a conversation, because I believe in introducing the subject of virtual reality. We are in the first stage of virtual reality, but our communities definitely need to embrace and understand what it's going to do for us.
And then what we wanted to talk about, even though those are incredible, fascinating things, but I don't want to give away any of the secrets of the goods. That's why you have to come to Limmud or hear
and
you
it's
speak.
being live streamed.
And
so
it's being live, right, exactly. So there you go. So the idea of young professionals is something you're really passionate about. And this idea that we were grown up as, in the future, you're going to have to be responsible for this. So let's go right into that. And I know you had an incredible insight about that.
Yeah, so we are not the next generation anymore because I'm a millennial, Gen Y. Gen Z is already alive and coming into the workforce, and alphas are being born. We are the present generation.
Yeah.
And when I say present, I don't mean throw off those in power right now, but it's no longer viable for us to speak of us as a future thing. And the question is not why are millennials distancing themselves from Jewish identity, Jewish communities, Jewish life, but how can we really bring ourselves to lead in this space? And it's really, it's been a real challenge for me personally and for peers of mine, to those of us who are enthusiastic about being involved and have our experiences and have done enough to now come and with as much respect as possible, not have just top-down power schemes working against us, but really how are we changing the Jewish sphere to be co-led by present generations that are able to lead. And now, there's a lot of data and research behind this. If we don't get the opportunities to lead now, we will not know how to do it in the future. So if I don't get to call shots now, I'm not sure who's going to call the shots after. And with that, the main reason why I'm in this and why I was brought into this conversation is because the organizations and Jewish infrastructures, not just Jewish, but we're talking in the Jewish sphere, they realize their irrelevance. And the only way to become relevant again, or maintain relevance, or bring it back, is to invite the people that you want to be relevant for the conversation. It is a real struggle, but that's why people like me and my peers, Jewish professionals currently, who are in the grind, and it's not easy. It's not easy being talked at, thrown off,
not taken seriously,
or taken too seriously, as if we are
like a threat.
No, as if we are the saviors. I will come with my social media infrastructures and I will do this right. No, it takes a whole village and a whole organization to do it right. And if we are, it's not about opening space just physically and making it into an open space. It's about changing the work culture. So that, and not just the work culture, but being Jewish. How are we accepting people's expressions of their own Jewish identity?
So it's so interesting because I see a lot of parallels between this being a former professional Jew, now being in a therapy practice, but also working with entrepreneurs. But I see the space and mindset also in the business world that technology has to be a huge part of it. New forward thinking has to be a part of it. This idea that we can keep doing the same old that's worked for the last 40 years isn't going to work anymore. And you can't compete in society as a business, as a company, as a nonprofit without catching up to what's being happened now and taking that. And I see this like dichotomy of struggle. It's like a painful struggle that people say they want this change, but yet they're so comfortable and so familiar with what was.
People
and it's
say
safe.
People say they want to change, but no one likes to change. And changing is hard and difficult, just like Hamilton says. And it's a process. But with that, current power needs to understand that they are the ones who are able to call the shots and say, I need to cut on these things now.
Yeah.
And the reason, one of the challenges with this being young adult in the Jewish world is, I know that we know the organizations want our dollars.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
But A, we don't necessarily have them. B, cost of living is just different. And C, if you're being irrelevant, it's hard for me to be engaged. And the ways that I engage are not counted by you. Right. Then you're not going to get my dollars. And we are the generation that you work with we create business plans. We need to show that we know everything. The tech side, the workplace side, everything needs to change.
We want transparency. We want to see where it's going. We know that organizations have changed. We know that we don't want the person living off our dollars in a way, or where is it actually going? How are you actually making impact? And I think one of the challenges in South Florida for the young professional specifically is that every organization is essentially the same. They may have a different cause or a different theme, but they're absolutely doing, really at the end of the day, the same stuff. We're either a Jewish program or we're an Israel program, but we're still Jewish, and they're competing for the exact same people. There's no real niche. There's no real, here's our mission statement doesn't really stand out. And you just go where your friends go. And I think that's a little bit of the challenge.
It's a challenge and opportunity, just like everything. The challenge is people are engaging with Judaism differently nowadays. To the point where a lot of my connection with Judaism is abroad and not in Israel, as an Israeli. A lot of my Jewish experiences are involved with Burning Man and festivals and being in an airport and finding other Jews. But what my generation needs to learn, and I'm not just saying power, old generation needs to learn, but we need to have a lot of appreciation for the fact that these organizations even exist. Because we all know what happened to our people 75 years ago, give or take. My grandparents, when they came to Argentina, had to rebuild their life completely. And what rebuilt our communities are these organizations still existing. So when I say present gen, I'm not saying just let us in. I'm saying we need to take responsibility for what our people have created. And it is a shelshelet dorot, a chain of generations. But right now, we, much like in other industries, but ours is not just an industry, it's a culture, it's a people, it's a meaning. And we have to be very humble. We've let ego and capitalist society just weigh into our engagement with our identities. And that's a problem that we must take as our responsibility to fix within the next decade. Because I don't know what's going to happen after that. And I'm 32 now. I'm still young. At 42, my life will be completely different. And I'm speaking for myself and peers of mine. If this grind of being in Jewish organizations, being perceived as on the first day I'm the savior and a few days after I'm the challenge, then it's not going to work.
Right, I know so many former professional Jews like myself left Jewish communal work because it was that experience. Something that I love doing. I was involved in multiple different organizations, and in one of my last positions, I felt like I got treated no differently than the janitor. And that was my aha. And I'm like, I'm not going to put up with getting paid probably lower than minimum wage to be told that things are my problem. That's been already an issue beforehand, and I should be the savior. I should fix their budget. I should fix this. I should fix their programming. I should be the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And that's going to all of a sudden cause all of their woes to go away. So that's a lot of pressure. And I know that the Jewish organizations need to hear this, that they're scaring away people who are so talented and so passionate and so gifted, and they're going to go to non-Jewish nonprofits, or they're going to go to corporate world, or they're going to go to some other field, because we're not creating that environment for them to feel empowered. And I think that's one of the essential parts of this.
Yes, to a greater extent, I would say me and my peers, we realize it's not about the pay,
right,
but it should be about the progress. And when you feel like it's neither pay nor progress, that's where you're like, I'm just gonna take my passions and talent. I'm not gonna be as passionate.
Right.
I'll find myself or recreate myself. But that's where the Jewish
it's
world
the LeBron
loses.
metaphor of when I'm taking my talents to Miami. Yeah, I'll take a pay cut because I want to be here with my boys to do what I want to do that I love, and I'm willing to sacrifice millions of dollars, right? I mean, obviously, right? It's that we should all be so lucky, but it's that mindset that if you build a community, someone might sacrifice in the professional world a couple $1,000s in order to continue to see a long-term growth, to be felt like they're bringing value. And I always share this when people call me as a business owner now, and they ask me my fees, and they're like, wow, that's a lot. I'm like, yeah, but I always believe that I'm going to give you more value over the cost that you're giving out of your pocket. And if you don't feel that way, then I'm doing something wrong. It's not on you.
Yeah,
right?
It's that, and at the same time, it's about evaluation at the workplace and getting the processes. Really, I'm seeing things come in 10 years after my friends have told me that in their startups or corporate, those things are already happening. And now we're just having the conversation of, should we have this? No, we need to have this. We need to start working just like the world, because this is a business and we are an industry.
But we don't look at it that way. We look at the nonprofit sector not as a business.
That's where I'm challenged by the we.
Right.
Which part of the we? Because you and I, we get that.
Yeah.
And if the Jewish world would have accepted that we need this, then maybe we wouldn't go to those same organizations and businesses that have been the supportive side for the past 2 decades. Because the last 2 decades got us to here.
For sure.
And we need the future 2 decades.
Now it's the next step.
And now is the time.
Now is the next step. So good. So because we need to really continue to promote this and push this, and a lot of people need to hear about this. Where can they find you? How can they track you down? How can they get involved? How can they bring you out to them? Where do they go?
So on your next podcast episode, I hope that's the first.
We're going to go further into that, for sure.
And then lionelmitapunk.com, LionMit on most social spaces, Instagram, Facebook, just friend me. My second name is Amit, which in Hebrew means peer or friend. I say I go around the world and I make Jewish friends and non-Jewish friends. Right. So I look forward to connecting with
awesome.
everyone.
And then the website?
248can.net is the 248 Network website. We're looking to get to wherever there's people in their late 20s to late 40s that are looking to be connected with Jews all over the world and looking to be inspired and bringing outcomes and outputs.
So if you guys are young professionals and not almost so young professionals, this is the person you want to reach out to. And again, he's here at Limmud Miami, and he's going to be speaking also many other places as he travels around and continues to do more of this. So please make sure to check him out, and thanks for hanging out.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're back at Limmud Miami, and we're here with Luna Goldberg, who is the new education manager at the Jewish Museum of Florida in collaboration with Florida International University. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this is your first Limmud Miami, correct?
This is.
So what do you think so far?
It's been wonderful. Yeah. It's been really interesting to see all the different panels that we have, and all of them are full. So that's always exciting to see.
Which is really exciting. So you're now doing this really awesome job. So what's your day-to-day? What are you hoping to accomplish? Tell us a little bit about the Jewish Museum and their mission.
Absolutely. So the Jewish Museum of Florida is a museum. It's a cultural institution, and we also have exhibitions and public programming around the Jewish history of Florida. So right now we have 2 exhibitions on view. One is opening next week, and it's an exhibition of Judith Lieber's work. We also have our core exhibition that celebrates the history of Jews in Florida since the 1700s up until today.
So we've been here that long.
We've been here that long. The first population count of Jews in Florida, it was 1763, and there were 3 Jews in Florida at that time. So it's a really long history that's very much rooted all over the state, and we also have some wonderful stories about Miami history.
Incredible. So a little bit more about what you're specifically doing. How are you taking what you're doing out of an office and into the community? Like what's...
Definitely. So my role is to create public programs for the community. I work with school groups and community groups. So this past week, I was at Nautilus Middle School. We recently received a grant through the STEAM Plus program of the City of Miami Beach. And so I'm working with about 500 students in local public schools, going into the classroom, bringing our history there, and also doing hands-on activities around these fields of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, looking at how they connect to us as an institution. So a big part of my job is looking at how we could engage different communities, not only Jewish populations, but different communities around the immigrant story, which is very much our story that we tell at the museum.
It's amazing. What's been the reception so far? So you're going into public schools and you're the Jewish Museum, so it's right, obviously very Jewish. What's been their experience and what's been the feedback so far?
It's been really fantastic. You know, we have students from all over, especially in Miami. It's a really diverse city. And so we have students that really recognize their personal histories through our story. It's also a story of tolerance, right? And how do we accept different members of the community? outside of school programs, we also just recently started a series called Exploring Judaism Through Food. And we actually have one of our Limmud organizers, Romy Nappersek, who's leading cooking workshops for us. And so we have a baking event coming up on March 3rd. We're going to do a whole program around Hamantashen. So it's been
I would assume that,
fun.
how can you do a Jewish program without food? I mean, that's kind of our obligatory thing that we do. So
that's very true.
It's a given. It should be no, we're not going to do a food program. There's always food, no matter what. But now they know to come just for that as well. And is there anything else that's upcoming in the next couple months that people should be on the lookout for?
So in the next couple of months, I'd say this coming week, this next weekend, March 1st, we have the opening of Judith Lieber. That's going to be a fantastic reception that we're going to have. And then coming up next, we have a Barbara Streisand show and a Will Eisner exhibition. Will Eisner was one of the fathers of the graphic novel. So we have wonderful programming planned around all of those exhibitions, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Incredible. So if they want to find out more where the events are, if they want to get in touch with you to bring you into any of these organizations, how can they find that?
So to find us, I'd say just go to our website at jmof.fiu.edu. There you'll find more information about the programs we have coming up, and my email is listed there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you so much.
Hey everybody, so we're at Limmud Miami, and I'm with Rabbi Guido Cohen, and he is the associate assistant, the rabbi at Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, which is one of the awesome rabbis that works at Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center here in South Florida, and he's also one of the presenters today at Limmud Miami. It's 2020. It's our multiple years of us doing this, so we're happy to have you here.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm an old friend of Limmud in the world. I started my connection with Limmud many years ago at the second Limmud in Buenos Aires.
Wow.
I went as a participant, and then I became a volunteer, and then I was part of the content committee, and I made it all the way to the steering committee. Then I traveled to Limmud in the UK one day.
The big one, the mothership. Yeah.
And it's something every Jew should have in his bucket list. It's go to the Western Wall, eat at the deli in New York, go to Limmud in UK.
That should be it. Those are and is that the top three for sure?
Top three, I think it's, yeah. Second Avenue Deli, the Western Wall, shawarma at Moshiko, and Limmud in UK. And you can come to Shabbat at ADJC also.
Fantastic. So that would be the fourth thing that you have to do. Would be going to Aventura, right? Shabbat, right?
But that I do it quite often. So then I moved to Colombia.
Okay.
I moved to Colombia after many years in Buenos Aires, where I was born and raised, and I started my connection with Limmud. And when I moved to Colombia, I realized that people didn't know about Limmud. So I organized a dinner at my house, invited 4 or 5 friends, and said, we're doing this. This is happening in 6 months. We're starting the first Limmud ever in Bogota. I think Limmud Bogota is already having its 5th edition in
Amazing.
2 weeks.
Incredible.
So when I moved to Miami, I said, okay, where's Limmud here?
And here you are.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Here I am. I had to wait a couple of years because there was this...
we had a hiatus for a year or so, but welcome. We're glad that we're doing this again. This is a really beautiful thing. So I know you're speaking in a little bit. What's the topic that you're speaking on?
So I'm going to be speaking about Mordechai because we're getting closer to Purim, and also because I think Mordechai is one of the most fascinating characters in the Bible for Jews who live in America, especially. Because Mordechai opens up the question of how do we deal with power? What's the place of a Jew in Shushan or Capitol Hill, which is kind of the same thing. What's good and what's bad about assimilation? Mordechai is a fully assimilated Jew that saves the Jewish people. So I think if there's one thing that I want people to take away from my session is never underestimate the power of an assimilated Jew.
So with the word, maybe, because we're in 2020 and words carry a lot of power, and we know that, right, in all languages. What would it be like if we stopped using that term assimilated Jew? And because I know the big phrasing in a lot of words is integrative, right? Or you're integrated, right? Where it's not just you're all or nothing. You're not one or the other. So is there something with this Mordechai story where even though he was out there in the world, he was able to integrate his Judaism?
Well, yeah, I think we were trained to become allergic to the word assimilation. I don't think assimilation is bad. It's bad to a certain degree. It's bad if assimilation is a dilution of your identity and complete separation from the Jewish people. But you're wearing jeans, we're speaking in English, using all kind of technological devices at a university that is having a church service, and we have.
Amazing.
When I came here, I was driving and I saw like a church wherever this way and Limmud that way. I said like,
God bless America, right? God bless America, right? This is the beautiful thing, and now not only that, but if you look at our panel of speakers, and this is what knowing like Limmud, right? In London, it's like the book. Their program book is a book, right? And here we have people from all different backgrounds, all different observance backgrounds, colors, everything like, right? Styles and lifestyles of Jewish life.
I would say that if there is one thing that we have in common, besides the love for Jewish learning and all that, is that to a certain degree we're all assimilated. We wouldn't be here if we wouldn't be courageous enough to cross that boundary and go out to the world. And I think it's a very interesting question, and also, one of the things that the book of Esther brings up is how do we deal with acceptance? Because one of the main reasons why the Jews didn't assimilate 2 centuries ago, 3 centuries ago, is because they were not accepted to the broader society.
Right.
It's not that we didn't want to intermarry. Nobody wanted to marry with us. So, how do we deal with being in a position of power in a society that not only accepts, but actually loves being with us?
Right. Do you think there was something that we had to do in order for us to become more accepted in that time period versus now, right? Everything's always 50-50. People love you, people hate you, no matter who you are, no matter what your background. What do you think it was? Because when you look into the Jewish laws, there's a lot of rules about not assimilating, not doing this with the non-Jews, not eating these type of things, not celebrating in these type of ways. And you think about it, if you look at the text, it's like we want to separate from them. But you're saying something different. They didn't want to assimilate with us.
To marry with us. Like, I don't know. I come from Argentina.
Right.
And in Argentina, I think it's worse news for a Catholic mom if you tell her you're dating a Jew than for a Jewish mom if you tell her that you're dating a Catholic. Or maybe the same.
Yeah.
So it's we know how to deal with suffering and with persecution. We are learning how to deal with the world that loves us and that accepts and integrates us, and that's a challenge for the Jewish people. We haven't been taught how to deal with acceptance and with integration. And also, I was thinking, it's interesting. I'm here this morning. Exactly a week from today, I'm going to be landing in DC for APAC.
Nice.
So when you think of Mordechai, like Mordechai was this kind of Jew that had this access to lobbying and meeting with power, and you go to the evening session at APAC, the dinner on Monday evening, and it's the largest gathering of congressmen in America outside of the Congress ever, in any given year. So, well, that's the Judaism of Mordechai.
And I love seeing that because I know like APAC is such a huge, and it brings people from a lot of different backgrounds. Limmud is that same thing when it comes to learning, right? That you have political advocacy, pro-Israel, whatever it may be. But here, as far as like the context of like anybody can learn and anybody can teach. You don't have to be an expert at something. You just have to be passionate about it. Because I know as I looked on the topics today, there's someone who is not even in the field that they're teaching, but I know they have a very specific interest in it for fun. And they're coming here and teaching it. And they don't have a certification. They don't have a license in that. They're not a practitioner of it. And I think that's one of the cool, they're Jews. And they want to teach it and share it.
You know what? Even if they're not, and that was one of the most striking phenomena in the Limmud Bogota, after the first year, we had to sit at the table, the steering committee, and have a conversation about what do we do with all this amount of non-Jews willing to learn and to teach at Limmud. And that's also a sign of acceptance and integration. And some people said we have to cap it because there will be more non-Jews than Jews.
That's incredible. That's incredible, though. But I wonder how much also is a sign of, like, let's say, those from generations ago that might have been Jewish families, right, that were forced to convert and stuff like that, the Marana, right?
There's a lot of that. But also there's a lot of people who feel attracted and seducted to our culture, our values, and again, that's another interesting challenge. Maybe next year we can learn about the book of Maccabees, other times in our tradition, in our history, where the Jews went out there to promote their message kind of as missionaries.
Yeah. Amazing. So good. So if people want to track you down, where can they find you?
They can find me. I gave up on Twitter.
Yeah.
Too much toxicity, so I'm not there anymore. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me at athjc.org, and there we have the sermons are sometimes recorded. They can come to shul. They can come to my classes. I'm a big fan of education. I define my rabbinate as an educational rabbinate, so I teach almost every day. I'm teaching something: Talmud, Torah, history, or they can come to Limmud. I'll be here next year.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Maybe you invite me to your podcast.
Absolutely. Right. Exactly. Right. Yep. Yeah, this will be up online eventually, especially on the Limmud page, and I'll be at Limmud social media. But awesome. Thank you so much, and really looking forward to hanging.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the You Winning Life podcast. If you are ready to minimize your personal and professional struggles and maximize your potential, we would love it if you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Jason Wasser, LMFT.